Ambassador Li Sujin walked slowly through the tall glass halls of the Galactic Council building. Her black shoes made soft sounds on the smooth floor as she held a small glowing device in her hands. The message inside made her heart beat faster. The device showed strange symbols that danced and moved like tiny flames. Each symbol carried a meaning that went back 300 years. Li Sujin had been waiting for this message her whole life, even though she hoped it would never come. Captain Park Min-ho, she called softly to the tall man walking beside her. He had been her helper and friend for 15 years. They had traveled to many worlds together, always speaking for Earth and humanity. Park Min-ho stepped closer and looked at the glowing symbols. His face became serious as he read the ancient words. The message was short but powerful. Children of Earth, the promise made in the Void Sector now calls to you. Our homeworld burns under hegemony siege. Honor the ancient pact. Park Min-ho's hands became fists at his sides. Every human who worked in space knew this story. It was taught in every school and told in every family. 300 years ago, human ships had been lost in the dangerous Void Sector. Their engines had broken down and they were dying slowly in the cold darkness of space. The Kithran people had found them. The Kithrans were proud warriors who usually kept to themselves. But when they saw humans in trouble, they did something amazing. They shared their own fuel, their own food, and their own air. Kithran ships stayed with the human ships for weeks, protecting them from space pirates and guiding them to safety. When the humans finally reached a safe planet, they wanted to pay the Kithrans back. They offered money, technology, and rare metals from Earth. But the Kithran leader, an old warrior with scars covering his blue skin, had shaken his head. "We want no payment now," the Kithran had said in his deep voice. "But someday when our people face great danger we will call on you. When that day comes you must help us as we helped you. This is our pact." The humans had agreed without hesitation. They signed papers and made promises. Every human leader since then had sworn to honor this debt. But years passed, then decades, then centuries. The Kithrans never asked for help. Many people began to think they never would. Now, as Li Sujin and Park Min-ho stood in the council halls, that day had finally come. Around them, aliens from many different worlds were talking and laughing. Some looked like giant insects with many arms. Others were covered in fur or had skin like rubber. They all came to this building to make deals and solve problems between their worlds. A creature with long tentacles for arms slithered over to them. This was the representative from the Vortak Empire. His tentacles moved in circles, which meant he was amused. "The young humans think they can fight the Hegemony Alliance?" the Vortak said in his wet, bubbling voice. "Your ships are small and your weapons are weak. The Hegemony has conquered 50 worlds. What can Earth do against such power?" Other aliens heard this and began to make their own sounds of laughter. The bird-like Centauri clicked their beaks together. The rock-skinned Morvians rumbled like small earthquakes. They all thought the same thing. Humans were new to space, young and foolish. Li Sujin listened to their laughter with a calm face, but inside she was smiling. These aliens had been watching humans for 300 years, but they had never really seen them. They thought they knew what humans could do because they had only seen what humans wanted them to see. For 3 centuries, human diplomats had acted humble and weak. Human traders had brought simple goods and asked for basic technology. Human explorers had stayed in safe areas and avoided trouble. Every alien species in the galaxy thought humans were harmless, barely able to defend their own worlds. This was exactly what humans wanted them to think. "The Hegemony Alliance has never lost a war," continued the Vortak, his tentacles now waving with excitement. "They have the biggest ships and the strongest weapons. The poor Kithrans will be conquered in months, maybe weeks." Park Min-ho's jaw muscles tightened, but he said nothing. Li Sujin put a gentle hand on his arm to keep him calm. There would be time for talking later. Right now they had work to do. Li Sujin began typing on her message device. Her fingers moved quickly over the glowing keys. She was sending a coded message that would travel faster than light to Earth and all human colonies. The message was simple: "The dead is called. Prepare for war." "Captain Park," she said quietly, making sure no aliens could hear her. "Send a priority message to Admiral Kim Jae-sung. Tell him the time has come." Park Min-ho nodded and pulled out his own communication device. He typed quickly, "Ancient promise activated. Kithrans need us. Begin mobilization immediately." As they sent their messages, neither human showed any emotion on their faces. But inside they both felt the same thing: pride. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what they were really capable of. The aliens around them had no idea that they were not laughing at the weakest species in space. They were laughing at the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen. The war was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Kim Jae-sung stood in the command center of his great warship. The ship was called Seoul's Pride, and it was bigger than most alien cities. Through the large windows, he could see stars stretching endlessly in all directions. But today those stars were not empty. They were filled with human ships appearing from nowhere like ghosts becoming real. Commander Choi Do-eun sat at her control station, her fingers dancing over glowing buttons and screens. She had been working without sleep for 2 days, coordinating something that had never been done before. All across human space, on hundreds of worlds, factories that had been quiet were now roaring to life. "Sir," Commander Choi said, looking up from her screens. Her voice was calm, but Kim Jae-sung could see excitement in her eyes. "Factory World Busan reports they are now making ships at full speed. The new Incheon shipyards have finished building the first quantum battle group. The invisible ships from Jeju Station are already flying toward Kithran space." Kim Jae-sung nodded slowly. He was an old man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment, even though he had hoped it would never come. Around him, the bridge was filled with the quiet sounds of people working at their stations. Everyone knew this was the most important day in human history. On the main screen in front of him, Kim Jae-sung watched as green dots appeared one by one. Each dot was a human ship. But these were not the small, simple ships that other aliens had seen before. These ships used technology that most species thought was impossible. Some ships could fold space around themselves, making them appear to be in 2 places at once. Other ships could fire projectiles so fast they could punch through the strongest alien armor like it was made of paper. There were weapons that could bend gravity itself, making enemy ships crush themselves with their own weight. For 300 years, humanity had been building these weapons in secret. While alien diplomats visited Earth and saw only peaceful farmers and simple factories, the real work was happening in hidden places. Deep underground, in space stations disguised as research facilities, and in the dark areas between star systems, humans had been preparing for war. Lieutenant Yoon Hae-won was young, only 25 years old. This was her first real mission, but she had trained for this her entire life. She looked up from her communication station with wide eyes. "Admiral," she said, trying to keep her voice professional but failing to hide her amazement. "We are receiving messages from Galactic Council monitoring stations. They are asking how we moved our biggest warships from the outer rim to the core worlds in less than 6 hours." Kim Jae-sung's weathered face showed a small smile. It was the first time he had smiled in days. "They think our ships must follow the same rules as their ships. They will learn the truth soon enough." The truth was that human ships did not follow the normal rules of space travel. While alien ships took weeks or months to travel between star systems, human ships could step outside normal space entirely. They could fold the universe like a piece of paper and step from one side to the other in minutes. On worlds across human space, the mobilization continued. On Factory World Busan, thousands of workers who had been making peaceful trade goods suddenly switched to building weapons of war. Giant machines that had been sleeping for decades roared back to life. The sound could be heard from space. On New Incheon, the largest shipyard in human space, workers in environmental suits crawled over the hulls of massive warships like ants on a dead animal. Ships that had been under construction for years were suddenly finished in days. New ships appeared so fast that the orbital traffic controllers could not keep count. The stealth frigates from Jeju Station were already gone. These ships were completely invisible to normal sensors. They could fly right through an enemy fleet without being detected. Right now, they were racing toward Kithran space to see what the enemy was doing. As Admiral Kim Jae-sung watched, more and more green dots appeared on his screen. The dots formed into groups, then into fleets, then into armadas. Ships with names like Spirit of Tokyo, Defender of Mumbai, and Wrath of Lagos took their positions in perfect formations. Each ship carried weapons that could destroy entire cities. Each ship was crewed by soldiers who had trained their whole lives for this moment. Each ship represented humanity's promise to never abandon their friends. Commander Choi looked up from her station again. "Admiral, we now have 500 ships ready for combat. Production facilities report they can build 50 more ships every day. All crews are reporting ready for battle." Kim Jae-sung nodded. 500 ships was more than most alien empires had in their entire military. And this was just the beginning. In hidden bases throughout human space, thousands more ships were being prepared. Soldiers who had been living normal lives as farmers, teachers, and shopkeepers were putting on uniforms and reporting for duty. The galaxy thought humans were weak and peaceful. They were about to learn that humans were the most dangerous species that had ever existed. And when humans went to war for their friends, nothing in the universe could stop them. The war was beginning, and the stars themselves would shake before it was over. Intelligence Officer Nam Sung-ho bent over his glowing screen in the dark room of his ship. The ship was called Ghost of Anong, and it was completely invisible to enemy sensors. For 3 days and 3 nights he had not slept. His eyes were red and tired, but he could not stop listening to the enemy's secret messages. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he captured another transmission from the Hegemony Alliance. These were the bad aliens who were attacking the Kithran homeworld. Nam Sung-ho's job was to listen to everything they said and learn their secrets. The enemy did not know that human ships were listening to every word they spoke. Colonel Oh Mi-young, Nam Sung-ho called out to his boss. His voice was excited despite his tiredness. You must hear this message from the Hegemony High Command. Colonel Oh Mi-young was a small woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She had been a spy for 20 years, sneaking into enemy territory and stealing their secrets. She had never been caught, not even once. She walked over to Nam Sung-ho's station and leaned down to listen. The alien voices filled the small room. They sounded scared and confused. The computer translated their strange words into simple human language. Our long-distance scanners are detecting impossible energy readings. Human ships appear and disappear like ghosts. Their smallest ships have weapons as powerful as our biggest battleships. We request immediate help for all our main systems. Colonel Oh Mi-young smiled for the first time in days. It was a cold smile like a knife made of ice. They are starting to understand they are not fighting the humans they thought they knew. For 300 years, the Hegemony Alliance had believed humans were weak. They had seen human traders bringing simple goods to alien markets. They had watched human diplomats bowing politely in council meetings. They had laughed at human ships that seemed small and harmless. But now they were learning the truth. Human ships did not just appear and disappear, they existed in folded space-time, a technology so advanced that most aliens thought it was magic. Human weapons did not just shoot bullets or energy beams, they could bend reality itself, making matter forget how to exist. Nam Sung-ho captured another message. This one was from a Hegemony battle commander. We attacked a human frigate with 6 of our cruisers. The human ship destroyed all 6 of our vessels in 30 seconds. How is this possible? Another message came through. Our spies report that humans have built weapons that can crack planets in half. They have soldiers who can see through walls and move faster than our eyes can follow. We may have made a terrible mistake. The messages kept coming, each one more frightened than the last. The mighty Hegemony Alliance, which had conquered 50 worlds, was discovering that they had picked a fight with the wrong species. Meanwhile, on another human ship far away, a different kind of battle was being fought. The ship was called Taejong-di, and it was where human diplomats worked their own special magic. Diplomatic Corps Specialist Bei Jinwoo sat in a comfortable chair, speaking into a communication device. He was talking to alien leaders across the galaxy, reminding them of old friendships and calling in old favors. For 3 centuries, humans had been very careful about how they treated other species. They had always been fair in their trade deals. They had shared their medical knowledge freely. When alien colonies faced natural disasters, human ships had always been the first to arrive with food and supplies. Now it was time to collect on those good deeds. The Crystalline Hegemony has agreed to close their space borders to Hegemony Alliance fleets, Bei Jinwoo reported to his superior. The nomad clans are offering to let us use their supply stations. Even the Zentaur, who never help anyone, have agreed to share their spy information with us. Species after species was choosing sides. The Mollusk Empire remembered how humans had helped them fight a plague 20 years ago. The Silicon Brotherhood recalled how human engineers had fixed their broken space stations. The Peaceful Traders Guild knew that humans had never cheated them in any business deal. Each alien government that joined the human side made the Hegemony Alliance weaker. Soon, the Hegemony found that they could not move their ships through normal space routes. Their supply lines were cut. Their spy networks were being hunted down by aliens who had once been neutral. Back on the Ghost of Anong, Nam Sung-ho intercepted another desperate message. All allies have abandoned us. Trade routes are blocked. Our fleets are surrounded. The humans have turned the entire galaxy against us. How did this happen? Colonel Oh Mi-young listened to the message and nodded with satisfaction. This is how humans fight wars. We do not just defeat our enemies with weapons. We make sure they have nowhere to run and no one to help them. The Hegemony Alliance had thought they were fighting a small, weak species that had only recently learned to travel between stars. Instead, they had declared war on a species that had spent 300 years building friendships, studying their enemies, and preparing for exactly this moment. The enemy was learning that humans were not just dangerous because of their weapons. They were dangerous because they understood that the strongest weapon in the galaxy was not a gun or a bomb. It was friendship, earned through centuries of keeping their word and helping others in need. Captain Shin Boare held tight to her command chair as her ship suddenly appeared in the middle of space. The ship was called Iron Tiger, and it was the most powerful weapon humans had ever built. One moment they had been traveling through folded space, and the next moment they were in the center of a great battle. Around them, the sky was filled with explosions and laser beams. Keithran's ships, looking like silver birds with their wings spread wide, were fighting desperately against much larger enemy vessels. The Hegemony Alliance ships were black and ugly, covered with weapons that spit fire and death. The planet Keithra Prime hung below them like a blue and green jewel. This was the homeworld of humanity's oldest friends, and it was under attack. "Target analysis complete," said Ensign Kong Taehyung from his station. He was young but very smart, and his job was to find the best targets for their weapons. Hegemony Dreadnought Void Crusher is at bearing 27 Mark V. Their protective shields are down to 60% from Keithran defensive fire. Captain Shin Boare looked at the main screen. The enemy dreadnought was enormous, 10 times bigger than her ship. It had enough weapons to destroy entire cities. For 300 years, ships like this had made the Hegemony Alliance the most feared force in the galaxy. "Fire Solution Alpha," Captain Shin ordered. Her voice was calm and steady, as if she was ordering tea instead of destruction. The Iron Tiger's main weapon was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It did not fire energy beams that could be blocked by shields. It did not launch missiles that could be shot down by defensive guns. Instead, it fired a stream of special particles that could do something impossible. The particles hit the enemy dreadnought and immediately began to work. They made the molecular bonds that held the ship together simply forget how to exist. The massive vessel, which had taken years to build and cost more money than some planets made in a lifetime, began to fall apart at the atomic level. In 3 heartbeats, the mighty Void Crusher dissolved into a cloud of individual atoms. Where once there had been a ship capable of conquering worlds, now there was only empty space and scattered particles that glowed briefly before fading away. The Keithran ships stopped firing for a moment, amazed by what they had just witnessed. Even they had not known that humans possessed such terrible weapons. All across the battle zone, other human ships were appearing from folded space. They moved in perfect coordination like a school of fish or a flock of birds. Dozens of ships acted as if they were parts of a single giant creature with one mind. The human ships used tactics that had been tested in computer simulations for centuries. Every possible battle scenario had been studied. Every type of enemy weapon had been analyzed. Every weakness had been cataloged and memorized. The Hegemony Alliance had expected the humans to fight like other species, with individual ships making their own decisions, with commanders arguing over strategy, with confusion and mistakes that could be exploited. Instead, they faced something that moved like a machine built for only one purpose: total victory. Human weapons changed themselves during the battle. When Hegemony shields proved effective against one type of attack, the human weapons immediately switched to a different type. When the enemy tried to jam human communications, the ships seamlessly switched to backup systems that the enemy did not even know existed. On one of the Hegemony space stations, Commander Ryu Junisio led his assault team through corridors filled with smoke and emergency lights. His soldiers moved with perfect timing, each one knowing exactly where the others would be at any given moment. The soldiers wore special helmets that connected their brains to a computer network. They could share thoughts and see through each other's eyes. When one soldier spotted an enemy around a corner, all the other soldiers knew about it instantly. The Hegemony defenders tried a desperate trick. They grabbed their own civilians, office workers and maintenance staff who had nothing to do with the war, and used them as human shields. "Surrender or we will kill these innocent people," the Hegemony commander shouted. Commander Ryu Junisio did not even pause. His soldiers fired special weapons that sent out invisible waves. Every person in the corridor, both enemies and civilians, fell to the floor unconscious. The weapons put them into a deep sleep without causing any harm. The human soldiers stepped carefully over the sleeping bodies and continued their advance. They moved through the station like surgeons performing an operation, precise and careful, removing the cancer of Hegemony resistance without damaging anything else. This was not the brutal warfare the Hegemony had expected. They had thought humans would be angry and reckless, easy to trick and defeat. Instead, they faced enemies who fought with the cold precision of machines but the determination of people protecting their family. The battle for Keithra Prime lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, every Hegemony ship had been destroyed or captured. Every hegemony space station had surrendered. The Kithran homeworld was safe. But the human fleet did not stop there. As the hegemony commanders watched in growing horror, the human ships began to pursue the fleeing enemy vessels. The war was far from over. Humanity had come to save their friends, but they had decided to do more than that. They were going to make sure that no one would ever threaten the Kithrans again. Fleet Admiral Lee Hyun-woo stood in the center of what used to be the most feared place in the galaxy. 6 months ago, this building had been the Hegemony High Command Center, where evil alien overlords planned the conquest of innocent worlds. Now it was a peaceful office where former enemies learned to live together. Through the tall windows, Lee Hyun-woo could see human construction ships working side by side with Kithran vessels. They were rebuilding space stations and orbital facilities that had been damaged during the war. But they were building more than just buildings and machines. They were building a new kind of galaxy. The war had not ended the way most wars ended. There had been no peace talks where both sides sat around a table and made deals. There had been no partial surrender where the losers kept some of their territory. Instead, the Hegemony Alliance had simply stopped existing. Status report, Commander Song Eugene, the Admiral requested. Commander Song Eugene was a small woman with intelligent eyes who specialized in gathering information. She looked at her electronic tablet and smiled with satisfaction. The former Hegemony core worlds have all signed individual peace agreements with the Kithran Human Alliance. They are paying money to repair the damage they caused. The war criminals responsible for attacking Kithra Prime have been handed over to Kithran Justice. The Admiral nodded approvingly. This was exactly what he had hoped to hear. The humans had not just won the war, they had won it so completely that their enemies no longer existed as an organized force. But winning the war had been only the beginning. The real challenge had been deciding what to do with victory. Some human generals had wanted to rule over the defeated worlds like conquerors. Others had suggested taking revenge for all the innocent people the hegemony had hurt over the centuries. Instead, humanity had chosen a different path. They had broken up the Hegemony Alliance into individual worlds and helped each one to govern itself peacefully. They had made sure that the civilians who had suffered under hegemony rule received help and compensation. And they had made it clear that anyone who tried to restart the old evil empire would face the same fate as the original. A voice came through the communication system from far away. It was Ambassador Lee Soo-jin, speaking from the Galactic Council chambers on the other side of the galaxy. The Council has unanimously approved the Kithran Human Mutual Defense Treaty, her voice reported with obvious satisfaction. 17 different species have requested similar agreements. The Galactic Trade Commission is restructuring shipping routes to accommodate human logistical capabilities. Admiral Lee Hyun-woo smiled as he listened to the report. The galaxy was changing in ways that no one had expected. For thousands of years, galactic politics had been based on fear and strength. The biggest and most violent species ruled over the smaller and weaker ones. Wars were common and peace never lasted long. But now something new was happening. Species across the galaxy were lining up to become friends with humanity. Not because they feared human weapons, though they certainly did, but because they had seen something unprecedented in galactic history. They had watched humans risk everything to help an old friend. They had seen humans fight with incredible skill and power, but also with restraint and mercy. When the war was over, humans had not enslaved the defeated populations or stolen their resources. Instead, they had helped them build better lives. The Vorthak Empire, whose representative had once laughed at human weakness, now desperately wanted a trade agreement with Earth. The Silicon Brotherhood was offering to share their most advanced technologies in exchange for human protection. Even the proud and isolationist Zentaur were requesting permission to send ambassadors to human space. Species that had dismissed humans as technologically inferior now competed desperately for human friendship and protection. They had learned that humans possessed not just advanced weapons, but something even more valuable: the ability to be trusted completely. Through his window, Admiral Lee Hyun-woo watched a group of young Kithran warriors training alongside human soldiers. The two species had been friends for 3 centuries, but now their alliance was stronger than ever. They shared technology, tactics, and knowledge freely. But more importantly, they shared something that was rare in the galaxy: absolute trust. The Kithrans knew that no matter what dangers they faced in the future, humanity would always stand beside them. And humans knew that their Kithran friends would do the same. Ambassador Lee Soo-jin's final report from the Galactic Council had explained the new reality perfectly. Humanity remembers its friends with absolute devotion. We also remember our enemies with perfect clarity. Choose wisely which you wish to be. The galaxy had chosen. Every major species and government had decided that they wanted to be humanity's friend rather than their enemy. For the first time in recorded galactic history, lasting peace seemed not just possible but inevitable. This was not because humans had conquered everyone through violence. It was because they had shown everyone something that had never existed before. A species that kept its promises with absolute reliability, that protected its friends with unwavering loyalty, and that treated even its enemies with fairness and mercy. As Admiral Lee Hyun-woo looked out at the peaceful construction work happening in the space around him, he realized that humanity had accomplished something greater than winning a war. They had changed the nature of galactic civilization itself. The age of empires built on fear and conquest was ending. The age of alliances built on trust and friendship was beginning. And at the center of it all stood humanity, no longer pretending to be weak and harmless, but revealed at last as the galaxy's protectors and peacekeepers.